What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. Today, we have a whole bunch of topics and news that we want to discover. We have an update about last week's video that we published on behalf of Etsy sellers and trying to get the attention of the CEO, Josh Silverman. We'll let you know what those numbers look like and what the reaction's been like as well. But today, the main topic that we want to talk about, because we have been bringing up a lot of concerns, a lot of changes that has happened over the last 12 months within Etsy. And the question is really, is it still possible to start on Etsy and be successful in 2024? And well, the short answer is this. We're obviously going to get into more detail, but the short answer is yes. But, and yes, there is a but, there are some different things that are going to have to happen. And Etsy has already made it clear. Amazon's done this as well, by the way. We have some news that we could share later on this, how they're really promoting brands. And they're really wanting us as sellers to, well, build brands. And with that being said, we are going to dig into what that looks like. There's actually two phases that we're going to go through. What Etsy is really, really good at for new sellers and how you can use it to launch your brand. But then what do you do once that gets up and running? What do you do from there? How do you build out a true brand? And what does that mean? What does the big picture look like? All of that stuff is what we're going to be covering here today on this episode. Now, with that being said, I've got some notes here that I'm going to pull up for myself so I don't miss anything. All right. We do, like I said, we have some e-commerce, Etsy, Amazon news that we're going to be sharing with you a little bit later. We also have a little bit of a video reaction that we're going to be doing on a top Etsy seller that was, well, suspended, banned, then brought back, suspended. And right now, I think he is back up and running, but we're going to go through that because there's a huge lesson here that needs to be learned. All right. And hopefully we can get Josh Silverman to see these videos that we're putting out to allow the Etsy sellers to be heard. With that being said, let me give you a little update on last week's video. We did a live session just like this right here, but we also did something strategically at the back end of that, at that video, at the tail end of it, where we knew that we were going to take that piece of content and we were going to publish it directly aiming to get the attention of Etsy and the CEO, Josh Silverman. Has it been successful yet? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that we've lost yet the fight of being heard because we're just getting started. But you still can chime in and help us and get our voices heard by contributing. All right. Now, let me give you some numbers here real quick. We posted that video. I believe it was on Friday. And I'm sorry. I think it was on Friday, I believe. And from there, we've gotten 11,854 views. So a lot of Etsy sellers. And we've had 1,027 likes on that video as the time that I'm recording this right now, or that we're doing this live, and 452 comments. Now, why are those numbers important? Well, if you go there to this video, which we're going to link it up in the description. So when you are available and you have time, I want you to go to that video in the description and I want you to watch it and I want you to like it and I want you to comment on that video. And what that will do is it will help us get more reach inside of YouTube, which will also give us a better chance of, well, Etsy hearing about it or someone on the board of directors hearing it. So this way here, we all can be heard. It's a direct message that is aimed right at Etsy and right at Josh Silverman about all of these suspensions that have been happening and just not having any customer support. So those are the updates on that. I'll probably give another update next week. So hopefully we can double that, triple that, quadruple that number. And you can help us by doing that. All right. And you can also start on this one right here and like this and leave a comment here and let us know if you've already done that. All right. So Chris, with that all being said, that was a huge tee up of what we're going to be talking about here today and a little bit of updates. But is it too late to start selling on Etsy in 2024? That is the topic. And Chris, what's your short answer on that? It's too late? Should we just pack up our bags and go home?
No. Would you like me to elaborate on that?
That was a short
And
answer.
you asked for a short answer. You ask, I give, right? Really what we're talking about here, Scott, and you and I have been harping on this, although it feels like a lot of things have changed. Like to your point, AI is really ramping up, right? You and I have been having some more conversations and playing around with some different AI tools. Temu is coming in hot and heavy. There's a lot more accounts getting banned. And obviously, at the beginning of the year, we shared the numbers out of Q4 talking about how much more competition there is. But it does not mean that it's not possible. It does mean, like we've said in the past, that we do have to think about this slightly differently. And we do have to play a little more conservatively than we would have in the past. And we have to start thinking about some of the external things a little faster than we would have in the past as well. And I know you and I put together a two-phase approach for people who are looking to start selling or really ramp up what they're doing using Etsy as the backbone in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of stuff to cover here, guys. And, the short answer, like we said, no, it's not too late, but there is a purpose for what we can use Etsy for, okay, as of right now. All right. And I'm going to go through them. I'm going to go ahead and dig right in. And let me just pull up my notes. So this way here, we can get to it. All right. So the very first thing that we need to address is, yes, things have changed. We did a whole live session on, sorry, I'm just closing my blinds here because I was getting a little bit of light leaking in there. Sun just came out. So yes, things are changing. And we did a whole session last week on what those things are. But just to kind of recap on that, you've got things like Temu that is now part of the game. They're coming in. And I don't mean they're coming in necessarily like directly on Etsy, but there are sellers that are doing drop shipping type stuff now. And it's going to take a little bit before Etsy can, well, make it safer where we're not going to start seeing that type of stuff. Because a lot of people that are handmade sellers, they're already upset because people are selling print on demand type stuff, digital stuff, things like that. But Temu is a whole nother level. So you have Temu, you have AI, which is now just flooding all different markets, not just Etsy, but all markets. And well, it's here to stay. So we can't run from it, but how can we stand out amongst AI? So you have that. You have accounts getting banned for no reason. And part of the reason is because of all these other things, AI, Temu. And now we have, China is now a payment option. So now we know that they're being let in a lot easier. So there's a lot of things that Etsy now, I think, and this is what we talked about, they're saying to themselves, wow, we've got a lot of new sellers coming in here. Now, you and I, we know like we're legit sellers, but you have people that are not legit and they're just going to set up 50 different accounts, right? And they're going to try to then flood the platform. So Etsy now has to take precautions. And we did a whole video on the steps that they're taking to do that. And I think it's a good thing. But you have that stuff happening. Then that just brings on more competition, right? And that's something we have to deal with. So with all of this stuff, you might say, well, why is it even worth, starting? And should we still start? Well, the answer is yes. And here's how. All right. There's two different phases. And the first phase, all right, is, and I'm just going to give you like overall 10,000 foot view. Like we're looking at building a brand. Okay. Building a brand on Etsy. Okay. And what we're doing though, is we're also knowing that if we build a brand, okay, that is cohesive, and we'll talk about what that means here in a second. But if we're doing this, we're also building something that we can own, that will eventually not just be dependent on a platform. We're using Etsy for a very, very easy way to be able to get in front of buyers, because that's what we have to look at any platform, whether it's Etsy, whether it's Amazon, whether it's eBay, doesn't matter. They've already got this marketplace with buyers, with their credit cards already hooked in, and all they got to do is, click a few buttons or maybe one button, in some cases, a one-click purchase, and they're going to receive our items. Okay. So nothing better than that. If you've ever tried to start your own business online, there's a lot of moving parts. Okay. And people talk about Shopify. I'm just going to start Shopify. There's a lot that goes into that, because now you have to create your own, your own shopping cart with plugins, and you have to, you have to figure out advertising. You have to figure out, how to build out your store, how you have to add your different, add to cart buttons, and just different things that have to be done that you don't have to think about when you're using a platform. So using the platform is really in phase one is just this, is like using the platform. But step one is using Etsy and understanding that we're using Etsy as a launch pad. Okay. So let that sink in for a minute. Okay. Building a brand overall, like idea here, right? We're building a brand that whether we're on Etsy or we're on Amazon or we're on eBay or we're on our own Shopify, we are building a brand with our own products that we can take and sell wherever we want. Okay. So that's like big picture. And really what I want you to understand going into this, a lot of people will start on Etsy and go, I'm building an Etsy brand or an Etsy business. No, you're building an e-commerce business. Okay. I'm building an e-commerce business. That's what you're doing. You're just using the platforms to get in front of the eyeballs. Okay. And people that have credit cards on file. That's what we're doing. Okay. So step number one in phase one is using Etsy as a launch pad and understanding that that's what you're doing. Number two, okay, we're going to move quick here because we got a lot of stuff to cover. Number two is, like I said, brand focus. And this means that we are focusing on one specific niche. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do sub niches. If we're talking about wedding, that might be the overall big niche, but we might start with maybe it is bridal party gifts, or maybe it is bachelorette party gifts or bachelorette party, whatever. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. Just because we have the overall, okay, the overall niche, okay, sports and outdoors, it covers a lot of different things. You can have all of those other things, all those other sub niches, they're still tied in, but it's all somewhat related. It's more cohesive. Okay. Now, we're talking about brand focus because when we move through here, you're going to see there's so much more leverage that you have when you can sell more than just one thing to that one customer. Okay. A lot of times people are just like, I want to find the next customer, find the next customer, find the next customer. What we want to do is we want to have repeat customers and we want to have people that can buy more than one thing. That leads me into step three. Once we have the brand focus, we know the niche. Now we're going to start thinking about products, but not just any old products. We're talking about product lines, products that could go together, that people could buy with one purchase to another purchase. Or maybe they buy something today and then 3 months from now, because we have an email list, we're going to talk about that, we're going to be able to sell them something else. Okay. We're going to be able to sell them something else in the future, or even on Etsy. Okay. If someone buys something today and we run a sale, well, someone that bought something is probably going to get a notification from Etsy that, well, we're running a sale. And now we know that they're interested in our business because, well, they bought something that's related to our other products that we have. Okay. And that's how we're looking at this. Now I'm going to pause there for a second because I really threw a whole bunch out there. There's actually 2 more steps in phase one that I'm going to cover, but those 3 right there, okay, those 3 are the main ones to be focusing on. And you might be thinking to yourself, like, okay, this sounds great and everything, but have no idea about how to pick a niche or, like what does it look like to build a product line? We actually created what we call our 100K roadmap. All right. It's a blueprint that we put together after we did it. Now we've built several brands, not just on Etsy or with Etsy, I should say. But this one here specifically from my wife starting hers and getting to $100,000. And then we took that and we kind of put it into steps. If you want that guide, it's free. Just in the comments, put roadmap. All right. Put roadmap in the comments and we'll make sure that we send it to you. Okay. Totally free. It's our 100K roadmap. All right. Designed for Etsy. All right. So those are the 3. Chris, I'm going to pause there. I know we just threw a whole bunch out there. Do we have any questions so far?
No, nothing in terms of questions. Sandy said, I agree on the brand. I get repeat customers all the time as people come back for my sub niches. And Scott, I think this is the key when we're looking, and this is the reason we covered all of these things and we're shoving a lot into phase one here. When we're talking about getting started, the reason that we still think Etsy is a viable thing in 2024, to your point, we're using this as a launching pad. We don't have to master 100 different skills if we use a marketplace like Etsy, like Amazon, right? Something that has traffic, that has sales already going through it. We can launch what's referred to as the minimum viable product. All we're doing is we're putting up products and matching that to existing demand. We don't have to master traffic. We don't have to master all of these different things. We need to get a basic understanding, and we're going to cover a few of these things here in just a little bit of some of the marketing things. But really, if we can focus on creating the brand and the product line while minimizing the time that we have to spend on learning Facebook ads, learning Google ads, learning SEO, how do I install Google Analytics? All of these million other questions that are important if we're starting on our own site, but are irrelevant if we're starting somewhere that already has traffic and demand that we can take advantage of, then we can really hone in on what is the most important for any brand, which is who you serve and how you serve them. Who are the people that will buy your products, and what products do you have to offer? That to me really is the key. And using Etsy as the launch pad lets anybody, no matter their level of marketing skill or marketing know-how, be able to do that. And that has not changed, even though it has gotten a little bit more competitive here and there. That opportunity still exists.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great. Okay. We are getting a lot of people in the comments that want the roadmap. So Chris, if you can make sure that they have access to that, or that there's a bunch of people. So again, if we don't get right to you, we'll figure out a way to make sure that you get your hands on that. All right. So with that being said, let's keep going here. Okay. So the first, second, and third we just covered. Let's get into the fourth. This is a big one as well. What we need to do now is, because we're creating a brand, we're creating product lines, we also want to create an asset that we can leverage on and off of Etsy. And this is where we start building an email list. Now, this should be done as soon as possible. And the reason why is because once we build an email list, okay, we can take that and point that traffic anywhere we want. Okay, we don't have to just point it to Etsy. But while we're launching, okay, while we're using Etsy as the launch pad, okay, we're still going to be driving our traffic to Etsy, because this is going to spike our sales, which is also going to give us bestseller status. It's also going to help us get reviews, and it's also going to spike the algorithm, so we start showing up in search a lot faster. Okay, so there's a lot of benefits to it, but the email list is a huge, huge piece in phase one, because like I said, and we're going to actually talk about, this thing that's happening to a lot of people where their accounts are getting suspended or they're getting banned for whatever reason. Hopefully, people are going to be able to get their accounts back, and this suspension thing is going to start figuring itself out within Etsy, because Etsy does know that it's a problem, and hopefully we're bringing awareness to it. But if that ever did happen to you, and you did not have an email list, you didn't have access to all of your own products, you didn't have access to all of the things that you've built, you're kind of out of luck. Okay. So this is also a type of preventative thing that we want to do, or a thing that will help us if we get into jam, and it will allow us to have an asset that we're building for our business, our e-commerce business. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, how do you build the email list? I thought you can't collect emails anymore. You can't collect them with a third-party tool. That is, yes, that's been released, but there's nothing saying, and Etsy actually says that they want you to do marketing. They have a share and save link now, by the way, that they want you to use, and they want you to drive traffic, whether it's through email, whether it's through social media channels. They want you to drive your own traffic. But they don't want you to just take someone's email address and start sending them stuff. They want you to get their permission. And there's a variety of different ways that we can do that. Okay. And a few ways, real quick, is you can put it in your images. Put something in your images for sign up for our VIP list. All right. And then have a little link there that, that would say where to go. All right. Another thing that you can do is you can put it in your announcements. Hey, join our VIP list and get special discounts and special giveaways. Okay. It's another way that you can get them to put their name and email address in. Remember, Etsy says you can't take your customers and just use their email address. You have to get their permission. So let's say on your first welcome message, or your message saying like, hey, we just noticed that you ordered something from our shop. Congratulations. We're packaging it. We're going to ship it out here soon. In the meantime, If you'd like to join our VIP list, go here and you get discounts and, future giveaway opportunities. There's nothing wrong with that because, again, they're going to go to a page that's going to ask them to put in their email address. And if they don't, they don't. If they do, they've given you permission. Okay. So that's how you can do it at a very high level. Now, there's other ways we run external giveaways, and we've talked about that. Actually, inside of our email guide, we have an email guide that we created as well. If you would like that, it goes through our entire strategy on how we do it, how we use email. If you want that, once again, in the comments, just put email. Put email in the comments, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of that. Totally free, and you can have that as well. All right. So that's number 4, email list, email marketing, big. Okay. The 5th thing and the final thing in phase 1 is utilizing Etsy's internal tools and really optimizing the experience for the seller. So what do I mean by this? Like, what am I talking about? Utilizing their tools. Well, number 1, we have the internal email triggers. Okay. So if someone favorites something, they will get an email from Etsy on your behalf that says, hey, so-and-so shop says that you favorited something. How about you take 10% off? That's one way. Second way is someone adds your item to the cart. They don't purchase. They're going to get a follow-up from Etsy that says, hey, you added something to your cart. So-and-so said that they'll give you 20% off if you buy today. It's another way. And then the third way is if you have a customer, you can send them an email with a discount that says, hey, thank you so much for your order. Take 10% off your next order or 20% off your next order. Okay. So there's 3 ways that you can utilize those tools. What's another tool you could use? Etsy ads. That's a tool, by the way. Okay. Getting in front of your buyers almost immediately. And this is a great way to launch products. And we've talked about this. We're not going to go too deep into that, but it's a great way to be able to leverage the Etsy platform and leverage the traffic to get eyeballs to you. Once again, yes, we have a free guide on that. These are all areas that we've done the work and we've just distilled it down and put it into a guide. So if you want that guide, ads, put that in the comments. We'll make sure that you get that. All right. So the other thing that I should mention is the SEO side of things. Okay. And yes, you should focus on that. And once you kind of figure that part out, you kind of like set and forget. You don't have to obsess over SEO. Because the truth is this, one of the main ingredients, one of the main drivers in getting ranked is getting sales. Etsy is going to promote a listing, even if it's not fully optimized. Okay. It's going to push that listing that's getting sales because it's proven to get sales. So do not think that you have to spend all of this time every day, 24 hours a day, focusing on SEO. Yes, learn it, get it to where it's good enough. And from there, start driving traffic. And if you drive traffic and get sales, that's going to allow you to start getting ranked. Okay. So don't overcomplicate that. And yes, we do have an SEO guide as well. If you want that, drop it in the comments. Just put SEO and we'll make sure that you get a copy of that. So yeah, we have a guide for pretty much every area because we've done it and it's what we teach in some of our trainings. But if you'd like access to any of those, just drop those in the comments. Right now, I'm going to take a quick pause before we get into phase 2. If you have any questions on this, drop them in the comments as well. And if you can do us a favor, if you're getting value from this or from any of our lives that we've done in the past, like this video, comment on this video. Let us know what's helped you the most. We'd love to know. We want to know that we're actually connecting with you and we're listening as well. So Chris, do we have any questions on that so far, or are we ready to keep on moving and grooving and get into phase 2?
Didn't want to bring me back up, I guess. So there were two things that I wanted to talk about here, Scott. The first came from our friend Anu. She said, if you go where the demand is, how do you stand out in an ocean of people already selling that, right? If you're focusing around a niche, how do you make the most of this? And the answer is you don't niche, right? So instead of just going after everything wedding, you might go after wedding pajamas or bachelorette parties or some aspect of weddings. And then after you get your foothold in there, even in the most competitive niches, you can start to climb that ladder to the more and more competitive products. The other thing, Scott, and you just talked about SEO and you mentioned the SEO guide. And as soon as you did, we got a slew of comments, right? Saying, yes, give me the SEO guide. And that is a trigger word for a lot of people on Etsy because everybody talks about the importance of SEO and how to SEO your listing and all of these kinds of things. And I wanted to bring up this comment from Fatty Pancake who said, don't fuss over perfection. You're always going to be tweaking things over time anyway. What I don't want people to take away from that last point that you said, Scott, was ads and SEO, meaning I'm just going to shove as many keywords in there as I possibly can. That's not the secret to success. That only amplifies what's already in the listing. So what you're looking to do when we mention SEO is just kind of get a good idea of what people are searching for in your niche, and then adding a few of those types of keywords into your listing. You're never going to out SEO Etsy. What they're really looking for is the traffic and sales. So if we can get a good listing up, meaning we're using a majority of the keywords that our audience is using in a human readable way, and we can start to drive traffic with ads, maybe with the email list that you were just talking about, then Etsy will say this listing is worth showing. And the more we show, the more clicks we get, the more clicks we get, the more sales we get. And it starts that SEO flywheel. SEO is important to a point. And that is the thing I think that really lights people up is they see the keyword or hear the keyword SEO and they immediately go, that's the solution to all my problems. In fact, we just said, I tweaked my SEO, writing friendly and accurate descriptions that are heartfelt with my inspiration, right? Tweaking your listing consistently is not necessarily the key to success here. It's getting that solid foundation, understanding the types of keywords and phrases that your audiences are using, and then starting to drive that traffic. The real secret to SEO on Etsy is not the keywords, it's the traffic and sales that come from having a well-crafted listing, driving a little bit of traffic to it, and then letting that algorithm take over. So you don't want to overly be in tweaking that. Set that foundation. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Like Fatty Pancake said, get it in, get it up, get it running, and then start to tweak some things once you get that data back.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I see a lot of comments in there. So keep them coming. And I don't have the live number in front of me on the YouTube side, but we've got over 206 of you here live. I hope we got 206 likes, Chris. I hope we did. I don't know. We might want to see how many we got out of those 206. Guys, do us a favor. Take one little second, hit that little like button. That'd be amazing if you would do that. Okay, that's all. Just a little like. That's all. Anyway, all right, let's move on, Chris. We got more to cover here. We got more stuff to cover. We got lots to go here. All right, so phase 2. Okay, phase 2 now is once we get phase 1 built out, we get our systems in place. Remember, though, at the very start, we looked at it as we are building a brand that is focused in a niche, maybe some sub niches, and we're building out product lines. Okay. And that's what we're focusing on. We're building an email list, which also, by the way, is in this niche, right? We know that these people are interested in what we have to offer. And from there, we're also optimizing to its fullest everything that Etsy is giving us as far as tools and ways that we can reach out and, notify or run sales. Any of the things that they're allowing us to do, we're going to do. Okay. That's phase 1. Okay. But because we went with the approach of building a brand, guess what? Now we can build externally. Okay. And we can take and build a Shopify store. I'm just using Shopify. You can use whatever platform you want, but I'm just using Shopify because it's pretty well known and it's pretty easy to get up and running. And there's plugins now, by the way, that you can connect from your Etsy store over to Shopify, and you can immediately port over all of your products. It'll create product listings on your own website. Now, even if you're like, well, I don't want to go through the hassle yet of running the Shopify. I don't want to go through the hassle of, setting up, my listings and modifying them, or I don't want to build it out and make it look fancy, which you don't have to, by the way. But what you're doing, though, is you're taking all of your assets that reside on a platform and you're moving them over to another place, or not even moving, you're copying them over. Why is that alone so important? Well, let's say that Etsy decides to suspend your account for whatever reason, maybe ban it. You will not have access to all that stuff, by the way. So what are you going to do now? You're going to go into all your folders on your computer. You're going to go into Printify. You're going to download everything, re-upload everything, rewrite all your titles, rewrite all your descriptions. If you do this once, you kind of like stored it for the time being. And then anytime you have a new listing on Etsy and it's, you're still running on Etsy, you can go ahead and port it over. So now you're like making a backup that's yours, even if you don't use it right now. So that's like phase 2. But what you will want to do is then start thinking about, okay, let me start building out my external channel. Let me start building out my Shopify. And what this will now do is it'll allow you to, well, learn some other things about e-commerce and what is entailed. And that is, well, you're going to have to learn how to drive your own traffic. The first way that you're going to drive your own traffic is, I'm going to leave it for a little pause there for a second. I want to know, what do you think the first thing that you would do? Think about phase 1 now, what you just did. Okay. What do you have there that you might be able to leverage with a Shopify store? I'm going to take a sip of water. And Chris, maybe we're just going to pause there for a second. And I'm curious to see what we get in the comments. And then from there, we will reveal what that is. And then we will move on. So Chris, I'm going to leave it at that for a second. Put a little question there.
Just leave that hanging. And the real question here, Scott, is, have you been paying attention today or ever, right? If you've ever heard us talk about this, you probably know the answer to this. So go ahead and drop that in. And I know the question that we're going to get is, does it have to be Shopify is question 1. No, you can use whatever e-commerce platform makes you a happy camper, right? If you want to go through WordPress and WooCommerce, you can do that. If you want to create a Magento store, you can do that. Shopify, and the reason that we are talking about Shopify specifically is, if you remember back, Scott, when we were talking about phase 1 and eliminating barriers, making it as easy as possible, creating that minimum viable product, Shopify is almost, and I will say almost, stupid proof, right? So like, you don't have to have coding capability. You don't have to know how to build a website. You don't have to know how to do any of these things. They will walk you through the process and hold your hand the entire way from clicking the button, buying the domain, to having a fully set up store, right? If you use a lot of the other options out there, you're going to have to learn some additional skills that aren't just point and click or copy and paste. And that's the other reason that you mentioned using something like an app that will sync everything over. I know we're going to get asked about it. The one that we've used in the past is Vela. There's a bunch of other options that are available for that. That's just the one that we happen to use. There's pros and cons to everything. But if you're looking for a specific recommendation, I haven't tried them all out. That's just the one that we've used. And what that does is it creates an exact duplicate of your Etsy shop as Shopify listings inside of your Shopify store. It literally took me, Scott, I think, to copy the entire store 10 minutes. And then I had to go in and add in some categories and some of those kinds of things. And we went in and tweaked some of the descriptions and some of those kinds of things just to make it a little bit more Shopify friendly. But you don't have to. It will take all of the details, all of the photos directly out of your listings on Etsy and import them in a Shopify friendly format. And you can go in and make changes and sync back and forth anytime that you want from inside of any of those apps that will allow you to do it. So what we're talking about here as we move into phase 2 is making this, just like in phase 1, as easy as possible with as few new skills as possible. And if all we do up front for phase 2, Scott, is start to create that duplicate to the point that we got here when you were starting to talk about this, somebody, I think it was Sherry Poppins, said, if that happened to me and I didn't have that backup, I would have to start from scratch. And that's the truth. And Scott, I don't know about you, but I am notorious for creating like untitled Google Docs. So if I write an email or I create a product listing, I just open up a Google Doc and drop it in there because my intention is to never look at that ever again. Right? And if they shut down my store or deleted my email account, I would not have access to any of those things that I've created in the past because there's probably 800 untitled Google Docs that I would have to dig through to find that. And creating that backup before you need it, especially with something as easy as one of the apps like Vela that will copy all your listings over and something very easy to set up and use like Shopify, being able to create that, even if we're not learning the other skills and using that very first skill that we're about to talk about here, that is a great way to get started. It will take you an afternoon, even if you have no tech skills to do. And I would say with something like that, Scott, start before you're really ready. And once you have it created, then you can start to add in some of these traffic driving skills and really start to optimize the Shopify side of the business as well. But if you just have it up and running in the background, once you've set up that foundation in phase one, then you're good to go. And anything you do will just add some gravy on top of that.
Yeah. I wanted to reveal what that is now. And everyone that said email, ding, 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 ding. You're a winner. You're a winner and you should be proud of yourself. Just because I think you're a winner. I don't have any prizes, but yeah, you should be proud of yourself. All right. So yeah, you're paying attention. Email. Like if you've been building the email list in phase one, well, guess what? The minute you have a Shopify store, if you want to drive traffic, you can run a little weekend promotion and boom, you can point them over to Shopify. Now, someone in the comments had said, yeah, email, that doesn't work though. No one reads emails anymore. That's not true. Because depending on what kind of market you're in, pretty much every market is still using email. I'm going to share a quick little story with you. I went to dinner the other night with one of our friends, my wife and I. We went on a little date night with another couple, and I actually was in business with this one lady, and she started her own Etsy shop, and then started her own Shopify and built her Shopify. Her Shopify is doing better than her Etsy is now, but she built an email list of about 5,000 people, and in a mixed different ways. Like some were customers, but some were giveaways that she did, or lead magnets for something to download. And she sent out two emails. Okay. And she did over 400 sales in about, I think it was 3, maybe 4 days. Okay. And did over, I believe, $8,000 or $9,000. Okay. So email dead, email doesn't work. I don't know. You decide. I'm going to keep building an email list. Okay. Because I do think it works. And we did have someone that has listened to some of the things that we've done. And I believe it was that Sherry Poppins again, and says, I got 400 email subscribers after following your giveaway strategy. It worked perfectly. Yes, it does work. It does work. All right. So yes, email marketing is big. Email list building is big. And that's an asset that no one will ever be able to take from you.
Chris, Scott, I want to go on a rant here about email.
Easy though. We got a lot of stuff to cover here today, Chris.
Email doesn't work. I got
to pull the reins on Chris.
two emails over the weekend to a list of about 12,000 people on a $24 product, sold over $10,000 worth of product to those people. Don't tell me email doesn't work, right? Like all you have to do is send it. They weren't even good emails. They were just kind of there with a little bit of a promotion. We did over $10,000, which is, a little under $1 per person. And realistically, it was well over that because only about 30% of people even saw it. And I didn't even follow our advice, Scott, because I was in a bit of a rush. I was running all over the place this weekend. So I only sent 2. I didn't send a bunch of cart closing stuff. I didn't even follow the profit push that we talk about fully. And I still was able to generate $10,000 from that list on a $24 product, right? Email absolutely works in 2024. And there's a reason that we talk about it. And it's exactly that. I made $10,000 for about 40 minutes worth of work.
Yep. So guys, if you're wondering about email, yes, we have that guide. We mentioned it earlier. If you want access to our email guide for Etsy, just go ahead and drop email in the comments and we'll make sure that you get a copy. All right. So let's keep rolling here. We got a bunch of stuff still to cover. So phase 2, build that Shopify store, get everything kind of moved over. From there, continue to build the email list. That's step 2 in phase 2. Continue to build the email list and really focus on that. All right. Make sure that you're doing that. And the third thing, the third piece, which is a huge piece, one of the reasons why we start on Etsy is we need to learn and we need to do traffic, right? We need to learn how to do it and then we got to do it. So if you've run Etsy ads and you're kind of like, this doesn't work, I'm kind of frustrated. Well, doing your own external ads on Facebook or Google, right? Or YouTube, wherever. Talk about that's not easy. Okay. Now I'm not saying it's not doable. It is. One of our strategies in our email list building is running Facebook ads, like $5 Facebook ads, and reaching the people that we want to reach that are our ideal customers. So it definitely works. You can do it on a small budget. You got to learn it though. It's another thing to learn. That's why we launch on Etsy, right? We get everything else built. We're not weighed down by trying to figure that out. If you start on Shopify, you're immediately having to learn traffic and learn how to put all the pieces together. Etsy simplifies that. That's why we launched there. Okay. So that's phase two. There's less steps, but there's a lot going on there, right? We have build the Shopify store. We have continue to build the email list, and we have external traffic. Okay. And hopefully you're still running up on Etsy and you're doing all the things on Etsy. Okay. So that's the overall strategy with all of the changes, with Temu coming in, with China coming in, with AI flooding Etsy, all of that stuff. This right here, this model, yes, it will work on Etsy. And yes, it will work because we're building externally, right? We're also building external assets that can be carried over to other platforms. And there's nothing saying you couldn't take those assets and then start using Amazon merch or Amazon handmade. You can go on over to eBay, right? And there's other ones out there, right? So that's the two phases and really the overall strategy that needs to be thought about, okay, and implemented to succeed in 2024 and beyond. So big picture, choose a niche, develop product lines, build a brand, and build those assets. So Chris, I'm going to leave it at that. I know we had a bunch there, but we got some other topics that we got to get to. But if you guys have any questions on this, also let me know in the comments. How many of you would say that you're in phase one? How many would you say that you're in phase two? Let us know in the comments. I'd like to get a pulse here on the audience and see where everyone's at. And if you have not yet hit that like button, do us a favor. Hit that like button if you're getting any value at all. Let us know, okay? Hit that like button. Chris, any questions before we move on to some other topics here? They're somewhat related, guys, so don't worry. We're not going completely off topic. But do you have any questions that came in?
No, I think while you get that pulled up, I'll just recap that really fast. So Scott, to your point, phase one, what we're talking about here is using Etsy as that launch pad, right? We're making sure that we're taking advantage of the minimum viable product. We're finding our niche. We're putting our product line in front of a place where there already is traffic. We've started to get some traffic and sales from there. Then we're going to move on to phase two, which is shoring up our business, right? Making sure that we're not a two-legged stool, that we have something to stand on if Etsy decides to play a silly game. We're going to go ahead and create that Shopify store and move our listings over. And Scott, I know one question that we had about moving to Shopify is, if I don't want to move everything over to Shopify or to my own website, do those apps like Vela and some of the other ones allow me to pick and choose listings, or do I have to port everything over? You can choose to leave some things just on Etsy. You can choose to have some things on your own website, or you can just click and import everything and then decide from there. So it's literally as easy as a couple clicks. You can duplicate everything onto your own website and have that foundation for when you're ready and have the time to start to learn some of the other traffic driving strategies and make the most out of having your own site.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there. And I think it does feel better though, to know that we're building something that is also our own, right? It's an e-commerce brand. And I think that's the big takeaway that I want everyone to walk away with, because people come into this because they saw, I can, I don't have my mug today, but oh my gosh, you can put a sticker on here and you can sell this and people are making $15,000 a month on this tumbler, or this isn't a tumbler, but you get the idea, right? You've seen that. Okay. Oh, there it is. There it is. So we're not saying that. And you may have been led into Etsy with that in mind. And that's fine. You're here now. Understand that you want to build a brand. You want to build something that you can own, right? You own the assets that you're building, and you can use the platform of Etsy or Amazon or eBay, but you will own your own products if you go down this route, which I believe is the smarter route. Okay. If you're just going to sell one-off mugs, it is going to be hard and you might not be able to succeed. Okay. I personally don't think that that's a great avenue to go down. All right. So with that all being said, we've got a lot of stuff here to cover. We're going to pull up something else that could, it probably will affect Etsy sellers and anyone that's in e-commerce. So let's do this. Alibaba, AliExpress, basically the same company, they're coming for e-commerce brands and they're coming for the big dogs. They're coming for platforms as well. One that you might recognize, Temu. Yes, Alibaba just announced that they're going to be putting a lot of money and they are going to be pushing Chinese brands. They've actually said it in an article, and I'm actually going to pull that up. And really, what we need to do is understand what's happening here, but then also we need to understand how is this going to affect us? Is this going to affect us? So let me go ahead and pull this up. And I've got Chris here with me. Chris, what do you think of this? Well, this big news article that you actually brought to my attention, by the way. 10 billion yuan. Is that how you say that?
That's what we're going to go with. Anybody who speaks Chinese can yell at us in the comments and give us the pronunciation of that. But I'm going to go with yuan. And what they're talking about here, Scott, you and I have been talking a lot recently about competition and about some of the things that are changing, especially for Etsy sellers. And everybody's yelling about Temu, right? Everybody's talking about, oh, Temu sells all these low price products. Temu's doing all of these different things, and we need to really worry about Temu. Well, it turns out, Scott, it's not just Amazon, Etsy, the sellers on Amazon and Etsy who are worried about Temu. Alibaba, who you guys may better know if you haven't purchased large quantities of things, as AliExpress, right, decided that Temu is such a threat to them that they are offering 10 billion yuan. And Scott, we should probably do the math here on the fly as to what that is in dollars, to give people a subsidy to sell into overseas markets via Alibaba and AliExpress. So what are they doing? They're aggressively competing with 10 billion yuan to get 1,000 new or existing Chinese brands to sign up for AliExpress with the, for lack of a better term, express intent of selling products into foreign markets. What foreign markets? Obviously the US and Europe, right? And this is a direct response to them feeling threatened by people like Temu. So one, I would say it's probably worth feeling at least a little bit threatened by what's going on over at Temu. If one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world is putting up a huge amount of money to entice sellers to use their platform to do the same thing that Temu has kind of gotten yelled at for and complained about for in foreign markets. But if they see this as a threat from PDD Holdings and Temu, then we need to pay attention to this as well, because it means they are very seriously and very aggressively coming after that same portion of the market. So we now have two wolves to watch out for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I like the way that you put that. Yeah. I mean, AliExpress, I mean, we've known about them for years and people have been using them to do drop shipping. And, you know, we used to use them years ago to test products to see how good they were before we had to buy a big batch. So it's a, you know, it's the, the smaller company of Alibaba. It's their express model, if you will. So Chris, from what I'm hearing then is it's going to give an initial batch of 1,000 Chinese brands and merchants who sign up for AliExpress. It's basically going to be promoting at least 1,000 Chinese brands. Accurate? That's correct, right?
Yeah, and I just did the math here really quickly. This is 1.4, Scott, billion dollars.
Oh my gosh.
US dollars currently. I'm not going to do this in Colombian pesos, Mexican pesos, right? Y'all can Google translate that to whatever your local currency is. But 1.4 billion US dollars across 1,000 different merchants. Scott, somebody can do the math for me in the comments here, but that's a buttload of money for each of those 1,000 merchants. And what they're doing is they're trying to subsidize the shipping time. And if you watch what we talked about when we talked about Temu, one of the things that Temu was able to do is, because order sizes on Temu are typically smaller, which is why Alibaba is doing this with AliExpress, they can use, for lack of a better term, a shipping loophole, right, to get products into the US at a very inexpensive price very, very quickly. So what Alibaba appears to be trying to do here is putting up $1.4 billion and also apparently hiring the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you scroll back up and look at that image, it looks just a little bit like him.
Where is that?
If you scroll down, the guy that's holding the box there.
Oh, here.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. The beard caught me there. But what they're trying to do is take advantage of that same loophole and encourage new people to join their platform to do the same thing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because they specifically say it right here, right? The latest AliExpress campaign shows how competition from a new generation of China founded online retailers, Temu and Shine in particular. And that's how you pronounce, is that Shine? Is that the other platform?
I've always heard it pronounced Shein, but
Shein? Okay.
who knows? Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody correct us in the comments. Give us the phonetics down below.
Yeah, give us that. But basically, they're raising the stakes for Alibaba's expansion efforts overseas. Okay, and I mean, so this is a big deal, right? And it's a big deal for, I guess it's a big deal for Temu. But Temu now, what are they going to do? Are they going to come back and start spending more? And I don't remember what the number was, Chris, but it was billions of dollars that they're spending right now to acquire customers so they could take out Amazon. That's what the word on the street was. Now we're saying Alibaba's like, whoa, 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 don't forget about us. Like, we're the big dogs here, right?
And I think, Scott, I don't know where it is in the article, but I just saw it and it reminded me. So AliExpress has what they call their 5-day shipping program.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
saw that
specifically
too.
that if you buy something on AliExpress, you will get it into your hands in the US within 5 days. And what they're doing here is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, 1.4 billioning down to expand that program to more sellers and encourage more people to use it. So they are subsidizing this. Again, when we talked about this with Temu, we know that Temu, at least traditionally, has been losing money, like a substantial amount of money on each of their sales because they're subsidizing the shipping, they're subsidizing the products in order to gain that market share. Alibaba is now responding in kind by saying, hey, look, we're going to subsidize to the tune of $1.4 billion to try to get a little bit of that back. And I know I would rather see the two of them fight it out and lose as much money as possible while we're, just over here doing our print on demand or our handmade thing on Etsy. But it is something we have to pay attention to because this is going to become more and more of a viable option. And a couple of years ago, Scott, AliExpress had a lot of the same comments that people have about Temu. When they started, they launched. Quality was not great. They didn't have a lot of repeat customers. I see more and more people going to AliExpress as an alternative to an Amazon, to an Etsy, because that quality has started to come up. They've realized that if they want to compete in the Western market, that quality needs to be a part of that. So this is something everybody, regardless of the platform that you're selling on, whether you're selling on Etsy, Amazon, your own Shopify store, this is something you need to pay attention to because the competition is coming.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point this out. They're calling it the campaign, right? The campaign called 10 billion yuan of subsidies, right? That's what they've actually titled it. It's like, that's the mission. That's
Yeah. So what they've done is fired their marketing team and put that budget towards these subsidies, right? They're just calling it exactly what it is. It's 10 million in subsidies. We don't need to get fancy with it. We don't need to market it. You want some money? You want $1.4 billion in subsidies? Sign up, join the platform and send products to the US, send products to Korea, send products to Japan, and send products to Europe. We'll give you the money to do it.
Yeah. What I'd like to know in the comments here is how many of you have either purchased something off of AliExpress or purchased something off of Temu, or how many of you have used AliExpress to buy products to resell, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on Etsy, whether it's on eBay. I'm just curious. And I'll be straight up. Like, I've never bought anything off of Temu, but I have purchased things off of AliExpress. But I did it, and this is going back probably 8-9 years ago, and I was doing it to test products that I was going to potentially be selling as private labeling, and that was on Amazon, and that was years ago. So I have had some experience with AliExpress, and I've purchased through Alibaba. I've actually found agents through that, but I've never purchased anything personally for myself. But I'm just curious in the comments. And I'd also like to know, what do you think in the comments is this going to do to platforms like Amazon, Temu, even Etsy, eBay? What do you think this is going to do with the news of all of these Chinese brands being supported by Alibaba, a big giant with billions of dollars? I'm just curious in the comments. Let us know what you think. At the end of the day, I personally think this. We should always be building our brand and, building assets that we have control over, and we have to adapt. That's part of business. That's part of any business, is really learning how to adapt, and also just being aware of what's going around us, or what's going on in the marketplace. So Chris, what did we get? Did we get anybody that's leaving their comments here?
Yeah, we got a lot of people telling us it's Shein. Like, if you were to ask me, is Michelle coming? I'd be like, yeah, Shein, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
I guess that's what we'll go with until somebody else yells at us
Sure.
in the
Shein.
comments and
Okay.
gives us
Good.
the real Mandarin pronunciation. And Scott, you mentioned a couple minutes ago the amount that Temu spent on customer acquisition. I think the number you and I threw out was just the Facebook number. And in 2023, they spent $2 billion on Facebook ads. And
That's
if I remember
insane.
correctly, it was like 30% of
Yeah.
Facebook ads budget, which is terrifying. Like, it was a really high number. Don't quote me on that percentage, but it was an insanely high number from what I remember. And yes, this year it will probably be a lower percentage, at least in the US, because political ad spend. But the rest of that is still terrifying, right? That dollar amount is huge. And the question that I have for you before we jump into the next thing, Scott, is Etsy doing enough to compete with that level of ad spend? You know, we had a lot of people say, and I think I agree with them, I said the Facebook ad, the Super Bowl ad was one of the weirdest things that I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know how effective it was. It didn't make a lot of sense and it was kind of weird. But the concept in general, right? We threw out the number $7 million. That is like a sneeze in the wind compared to 2 billion. So do you think platforms like Etsy are doing enough to compete with that level of ad spend? And is there anything that they can do to compete at that level?
Well, okay. I think Etsy needs to stay in their lane. And I think that they've already kind of made it very clear that they still, even though they're not all handmade now, they're still trying to cater to people that are gift giving and personalization. So I think as long as they stay in their lane, they don't try to be the Temu. Now the Temu to me, or the AliExpress or any of these, you can buy anything under the sun. There's really no limits to it. What I do like that Etsy is doing is they're really, really pushing gift. Like, that's their domain now. So to me, own it, put all the energy there. And us as brands, we just want to know that Etsy is also going to fend off any of these, drop shipping style of brands that are going to be trying to come on the platform. And I think that they are. I think that that's going to be a priority for them. So yes, their platform might be smaller, but it'll be more concentrated and it'll be more focused on really being original, getting stuff that's unique, and getting things that are personalized. And I think if they stay there, they'll be okay. And if we're sellers and that's what we're catering to, then we should be okay. But the big thing is they have to find a way to not allow in drop shipping type stuff where you can just hook in AliExpress or hook in Temu and then start listing stuff and have it be drop shipped. I don't think that should happen. So that's my take on it. And I'd be curious to hear what anyone else has to say on that in the comments. So, all right, Chris, let's move on. I think we wanted to get into also this whole thing about Etsy shops being banned. We talked about this last week on our live. We actually also created a video that addressed it, but we also brought up, and actually, I believe he commented on our last video, and I believe it's Vlad. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And if I'm wrong, Vlad, I'm sorry. And Vlad, if you are watching this or you hear that you were mentioned or whatever, and you want to reach out to us, we'd love to get you on and have you on it as a live guest. And maybe we can dig in and really unpack more of the story. But what we decided to do was pull up Vlad's video that he basically shared what had happened. Now, this guy has sold hundreds of thousands and probably over $1 million worth of stuff now. All right. So that's what we want to do, though. We want to share this because I think there's a valuable lesson here. And I also want to help him be heard. Right. And if you guys are just tuning in, we did a whole video where we're trying to get the attention of Josh Silverman of Etsy, the CEO, or anyone on the board of directors, someone that can bring it to the board to let us be heard. If you want to help us with that, in the comments, we are going to have a link to that video. Watch the video, like the video, and comment on the video, and that will help us reach more people and hopefully be heard. All right. So what we want to share here is how an Etsy seller who is doing over $100,000 per month doing everything that Etsy says it wants you to do. And I'm talking about not even print on demand. I'm talking handmade, hand sewn. And I say handmade, it was still done on a machine, but he owned the machines. Okay. And you may have already heard what happened to this Etsy shop owner. But Chris and I wanted to share the video, do a little reaction to it, but also allow this to see the light of day and hopefully get more attention. So this way here, we can help you and any other sellers prevent this from happening, because there was something that happened here that he shared that we all can learn from. Now, Etsy should also learn from it as well. And hopefully they'll be able to see this video or even his original video. So I'm going to go ahead and share that now, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. And this might take a second here. Let me stop sharing that. Let me share here. And let's see. We are going to share a tab, and there it is. And there it is. Okay, cool. Chris, you can see that okay?
Yes, I can.
And before we do get started, guys, have any of you seen this video yet? If you did, let us know in the comments. Be curious to see. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start it from the beginning, but I am going to skip around. I actually already watched it, and I'm going to skip to the parts that are really important. But if you do want to watch the full video, it's a little over 10 minutes. We'll link that up in the description as well. All right. So let's go ahead and listen in.
So I'm a top seller on Etsy, and all of my accounts are suspended. I went from making 60,000 to our record being 100,000 in sales per month to absolute zero. And in this video, I want to explain what happened. It is not an easy thing to deal with, because, like I said, being a top seller to now having nothing, it's pretty dramatic. And I want to explain what happened so it doesn't happen to you. And it has something to do with $7, which is the most frustrating thing. And it takes about 1 to 2 weeks to get that resolved. And I'm still locked out of my accounts. And it's during the most juiciest time of the year. Like, we rely on Q4, and it pretty much stole our whole holiday rush in one day. Like, it's just gone. Before I explain what happened, the context in which that happened is the most unfortunate. Like, it could not be at a worse time. Now, not despite even the holiday season, which we rely on heavily, like any business relies on Q4. That same week, and I normally don't share about my personal family.
So, okay, he's going to go into some personal stuff here, and I'm going to, again, if you want to listen to that, he talks about his family. He's got a daughter that has special needs, and like, there's a lot that it would really, really bring someone down to it. I mean, I'm surprised he has such a great attitude. And I know that he's trying to be strong, but man, oh man, like there's just, you can't even imagine yourself right now, number one, being suspended and locked out of your account and generating upwards of $100,000 per month. And then all of a sudden it gets just taken away and you're suspended. And here's the thing. Again, he mentioned $7, and this $7 is a critical piece. And I'd be curious right now, if you've seen this video and you know what that $7 is, drop it in the comments. I want to know if you already watched this video. All right. But it's really, really important, because that $7 could have been prevented. But the other crazy thing is Etsy, okay, suspended him and also lost Q4. Remember Q4, let's say he was doing $100,000 per month. They lost $100,000, or who knows, if they shut him down for the entire year, they could lose $1 million. But if they just would have reached out to him, they would have had this fixed in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. If all they did was picked up the phone and said, "Hey, top seller, we know that you're doing $100,000 a month. You're doing $1 million a year. What happened? What about this $7? And then he could have said, "Oh yeah, I'll take care of that." And then you take care of it, and boom, you're back up in business. But no. And that's why we did a video recently to try to reach Josh Silverman of Etsy. I'm going to link that up in the description. Make sure that you watch that. Make sure that you like it. Make sure that you comment on that video. It's directly for people like him, okay, that got suspended and lost out on Q4 sales and their livelihood. Let's keep going here. I'm going to skip ahead to the 5-minute mark because that's when he starts talking about what actually happened. So let me go ahead and I'm going to go to about right here and we'll let it start right here.
Just exit my body. It's not easy. So turns out, well, I try to figure out what's going on. I'm just hearing billing everywhere, billing. I didn't see an email that says permanently suspended, which gave me some hope. Oops. So I tried to figure out what was going on. I obviously appealed on all of my Etsy shops. So I appealed it because all of them were suspended. Big nasty red saying, "Hey, you're suspended." So I appealed all of them. Nobody was answering. Obviously, it says the automatic message after that says 1 to 2 weeks. I'm like, this is the holiday season. I can't wait 2 weeks. So I tried to message them. I couldn't find the little bubble, the chat bubble. And people say, well, it's because you don't, it's a star seller badge. Well, some of the Etsy shops that we do have didn't have it, and vice versa. I went to my parents' house on an Etsy shop. They didn't have a star seller, and they did have chat bubble. So anyways, I went to their house to start doing chat bubble. Initially, I thought it was a real person. I thought that was the perks of that chat bubble, but it's an AI. It sounded very natural, and obviously with the AI technology, it sounded very natural. And it was able to let me know that there was an outstanding balance. Now I'm looking on all my Etsy shops, and I don't see any outstanding balance. You know, usually when you start selling on Etsy, if you don't have enough money that you didn't make sales, but you did spend advertisement or there were fees, it'll charge your card that's on file. And I couldn't find that on any of my shops. And then I'm like, wait, I had an Etsy shop I created a long time ago. It was a cat collar store. Since I made dog collars, I'm like, hey, why don't I use the same equipment to make cat collars and have a whole separate store for that? Now I closed that store down because that equipment that I had at that time made the collars too heavy, and so people were complaining. So I decided to close that shop down because I don't want to send out bad product. And I forgot about it. It was like 2 years ago. I opened up that shop, and there was a balance of $7 that wasn't paid for God knows how long, and so I paid the balance. That was what basically caused the cascade of any name connected to this account. Any other accounts that is connected to this name will be suspended because I violated their policy of not paying the bill of $7. So for $7, we robbed our whole holiday season. So what you can do, actually, if you want to see if you have any balance on the account, is you pretend like you're about to close the Etsy shop. You go on options, you go on close your shop, and it'll say, wait, you have this balance. And check for any other Etsy shops that you have opened in the past. If that, because my friend, when I told him this, and he had like 30 employees, he did find an Etsy shop that did have an outstanding balance. The only reason that didn't happen to them is because that Etsy shop had a different name. Like it wasn't under their business name. It was, I believe it was under his personal name, which kind of kept that isolated. So if Etsy is seeing this, by the way, like and share this video. You could just go on and just share and then copy link. You don't have.
Okay, Chris. I think we've heard enough. And I just want to say to Vlad, I hope I'm saying his name properly. Number one, I'd like to get Vlad on and we can dig deeper into this. So hopefully we can bring more awareness. And that's what we're doing right now is we're trying to bring awareness to his video, and his story, because it's unfortunate and it needs to be heard. And I'm like, what the heck? How does Etsy not see this as a big problem? If I was on Etsy's board and I heard this, I saw this video and I'm like, who's in charge of support and our top sellers? Who's in charge of them? Because you just cost the company $100,000 for 1 month and maybe $1 million. Who's in charge? That person should be fired. Okay. Because that person cost Etsy a lot of money and a lot of grief for this person, this legit business. All right. So the big takeaway here is right now, number one, be careful on opening additional shops. That would be my first thing. Like, focus on one shop. Don't go off and go, oh, I got another idea. Let me do another shop. And let me do another idea. I got another shop. Try to just stay focused. That's number one. Number two, if you do open a second shop, make sure that you're going in there and you're making sure that all of your stuff is paid. Because $7, yes, that's right, $7 is the reason why this shop was suspended. And he lost out on Q4 sales, all because of $7. So, like, his recommendations was, go check your accounts. If you don't, or if you have more than one account, check your accounts right now to see if you have any outstanding balances, because it just could be a matter of time that you get suspended. You know, that shop, he said, was over 2 years old. He hadn't went back to it in forever. Why did they decide to go and do, to go ahead and do a look now and then suspend all accounts? How do all of the accounts get attached to one account? That's what I don't understand. They should be independent of each other. And then from there, you can say, okay, let's start looking at the other shops. Chris, what'd you want to say?
I think I can explain how this happens, right? And it makes sense. And he even said it in the video. So he said they were all associated with his business name, and that's why it didn't happen to his friend who had different accounts. And as someone who's worked at tech companies, the conversation with their engineering team probably went something like this. Hey guys, what we've noticed is there's a bunch of people creating a bunch of accounts and they're leaving them with balances open. We don't want people to be able to exploit that loophole. We don't want to lose money because scammers are creating all of these accounts, right? Something to that effect. And the engineers went, cool, here's a way we can tie all of those together where if one account has a negative balance, we can just shut down all of their accounts. From a purely logical standpoint, Scott, that makes sense, right? When you tell an engineer, this is what we need, that is what you get. The problem that appears to have happened here is that they didn't have the follow-up conversation or the follow-up thought process of, well, what happens if one of those accounts is making us a buttload of money, right? And so for $7, they lost tens of thousands of dollars in fees, in revenue, in advertising money, if not $100,000 or even more, because there was no logic applied to this situation. And there's a couple different ways a lot of other companies handle this. And I wish that Etsy would learn some of these lessons, which is why we're talking about this. First would be having somebody you can reach out to. Scott, we are not big enough on YouTube at this point that we have like a channel account person, but at some point you get to that size, right? And if you have an issue with somebody flagging your video on YouTube as violating copyright infringement, instead of going through the manual appeal process, you just reach out to your account rep and you say, hey, clearly not, like it's Chris and I standing here having a conversation, right? It's clearly not copyright infringement unless somebody copyrighted Chris's image, which would be terrifying for them. And that's how a lot of other people handle this. But the other one would be, hey, maybe send them an email and say, you have this account balance. Or since you know that they are related and it sounded like they had the same banking info, just deduct $7 from his bank account that's attached to it. Like, he has other accounts that clearly have valid payment methods. So since you know that they are connected because it's the same EIN from the sound of it, it's the same, personal information, either do that or send him a bunch of emails that say, hey, your account is at risk of being shut down if you don't do this. Since you know the accounts are related and you're going to shut them down anyway, put a giant banner when he logs into the account that's making money to say, hey, you have another account that owes us money. Go correct the payment information. If you're worried about the legal implications of, taking money from this account or whatever, like, I don't know, use all of this capability that you have to notify the seller because he didn't even remember he had created the account. Right? So maybe just say, hey, check one of your old accounts, click here to see the login information since we know that it's related, or, send him some emails with that same information, give him a heads up. And instead, Scott, what they did was they just shut everything down. For a 30-second solution, they then lost 2 weeks worth of revenue, right? From somebody who's doing several $100,000 a year. I don't know about you, but the listing fees alone were more than the $7.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't include the rest of the 12% that they end up taking when we account for the different fees. That's well more than the $7 that he was owed. So maybe let's spend a couple cents to notify the guy so that we can avoid this in the future. And if it's truly like the spammer situation, then maybe that's a different story. But give people a chance here. And if you're not, then you're just lighting money on fire too. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what we can do. Okay. We're doing, these videos to bring awareness and bring attention to, people like this, right? That were suspended, that were banned. Especially this here is like so legit. It's like exactly what Etsy wants. They want handmade, right? Like, yes, they will let us do print on demand and they'll let us do other types of items now, but like digital products, but they were built on the backs of handmade. And this is as handmade as it gets, in my opinion, because it is done by a machine that does stitch. It's done there locally inside of his own shop. He's right there with the machines back of him. And he's creating these dog collars, from scratch. So you would think that a shop like that, they would really want to have a dedicated person, or a dedicated person that they could actually discuss things with, to help Etsy not lose money, because that's what Etsy's doing. They're losing money too by not allowing this, this seller to continue. So let's do this. Make sure that you like this video, you comment on this video, whether you want to have a comment about the, about the video that we just shared, if it's about your own story, your own experience, let us know in the comments. Like this video, and this way here, maybe we can get heard and allow these stories to be shown. So this way here, we can have someone maybe on the Etsy team see it and bring it to the board. That's what we need as Etsy sellers. So that's what you can do. You can help yourself, but you can also help others that are selling on the platform by just doing those simple steps. So once again, I'm going to reach out to Vlad, and hopefully he's watching this, or he's watched this video, and maybe we can get him on here and we can get even more on that story. So that's what you need to do to get heard here, guys. Just like the video, comment, and let's do this together as a community. All right, Chris, do we have any quick questions there before we wrap her up for the day?
No, we did have one win to share, and if anybody does have questions before we jump off here, drop in.
Ooh, a win? I want wins. What do we have?
Sherry Poppins says, I woke up on Saturday with 2 great orders after going through and tweaking the listings with your advice. I love to hear that. Scott, we had another win, but for some reason it disappeared from my stars. And somebody said, who was it? They have a little mountain as their icon on YouTube. I saw it earlier. They said they made a $1,500 sale today, which is awesome. And I love that. Before we jump off, Scott, I think the question that I have, and I'm kind of posing this to you, is does Etsy just hate money? Because everybody's response to this is like, yeah, why are they going to care what people on YouTube are complaining about? Right. And the reason that you and I are so upset about this is like, you even said this. You said, if I was the CEO of Etsy, there would be heads rolling on the floor of this because we didn't have a conversation.
Yep.
We lost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees. And if it happened to him, I guarantee you it's happened to other people. And a bunch of people in the comments are like, wait, so they can put up a giant red banner in your listing if they think you have an IP or a trademark infringement, but they can't do it for $7? I can't brain this, which I think is one of my new favorite phrases, right? It doesn't make sense. And when I said that, somebody commented it was Jack in the shop, said, it does not make sense. It also doesn't make dollars, right? To quote Ben Mala. If we're not doing logical things here for sellers, even for short-term gain, right? If I'm getting paid in a lot of Etsy stock as the CEO or as the chief accounting officer, the chief marketing officer, which I think they actually got rid of at the end of last year. Yeah. I'm not just concerned about the short-term performance of that. I want to create an environment where the company's making as much money as possible to make my stock worth more. And yes, we obviously are enthralled by AI, right? I want to replace as many people as possible because that'll bring costs down. But we also have to think about the errant consequences of bad development. And we had another story that we don't have time to cover that is yet another bad development thing, right? You guys may have seen that now when you add something to a cart, you get a pop-up that tells you or reminds you that you have something in your cart, and it like does not go away ever and starts popping up in weird places, and they have all kinds of issues with it, right? I'm all for Etsy rolling out new features, but they seem to not be paying attention to some of the basic troubleshooting things, and it leads to a lot of consequences like this, where for $7, we light on fire tens of thousands of dollars in fees. Yeah. And if I'm looking at this in my business, there are heads everywhere, right? Like everybody's getting fired. I'm just starting from scratch. Or we need to figure out why and where that communication breakdown is between the, the features development team and the actual management team. And you can't blame the developers for this necessarily, because they probably got told, hey, we have this problem, go solve it. And then nobody took that second level process of like, okay, but what if they're not all fraudulent?
Right.
What if we're making a bunch of money from one of these accounts? Shouldn't we, I don't know, send a push notification in the Etsy seller app? Shouldn't we maybe send an email? I don't know. If it's going to cost us over $100 in fees, you can even program that in, right? Like, hey, this store that's connected is making XYZ money. I bet we could afford somebody to make that phone call, right? Like, it's not that expensive to hire somebody to make that phone call just for people in that specific situation. And I guarantee you there's tens or hundreds of sellers that this has happened to, whether it was for a fraudulent IP claim and they went and they shut down all of the associated stores, or something like this silly $7 balance that you could resolve a million different ways. This is happening over and over again. And we're not seeing the forest through the trees of the scam accounts.
Yeah, no. Sandra says, I had a store that I forgot about. I owed $5 on it. I paid it yesterday. My shop was suspended, but now unsuspended. It was 360 days past due. That's crazy. Yeah. So if your account did get suspended and you're wondering why, first thing to do is probably look and see if maybe, because they won't tell you. So you might want to just go in and make sure that you don't owe a balance. And that balance could be on Etsy ads that you ran $5 on, so just make sure that that is paid. Yeah. Then people are saying about the pop-up. Yeah. So Fatty Pancake says, if the AI is trained on the Etsy handbook, at least we'd get the straight answers we need versus trying to deal with a language barrier with overseas customer service teams. Yeah, I agree. So
I think the only problem with that philosophy, and I know I'm a big advocate for that, right? Which is like, if you're going to give us an AI chatbot, at least make sure it knows the rules. Is the Etsy handbook also is not always written in plain English or plain Spanish or plain German, right? They have a lot of things that are like, maybe it's like this. And that comes down to not having great attorneys that can help you classify in an English speaking way.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap this up. I do have a couple things. First off, if you want any of the guides that we mentioned in here, just leave your comment in there. We have the email marketing playbook. We have an SEO playbook. So if you want the email one, put email. If you want the SEO one, put SEO. If you want the Etsy ads one, put ads. And if you want our overall brand building roadmap, that's the 100K roadmap. You can just put roadmap in the comments, and we'll make sure that we get those over to you. All right. The other thing is we are going to be recording our next set of Etsy shop audits for our weekly show. So some of you know we do a weekly Etsy shop audit here on the YouTube channel. So if you're not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure that you do, and you'll be notified when we release them on Thursday. But what we do is we batch record 3 different Etsy shop audits. Tomorrow just happens to be that day. Well, if you're in our Backstage Pass club, you will be able to join us, and you'll be sitting in on those 3 Etsy shop audits. And then we also allow time for questions and answers. So that's happening tomorrow. If you are already a Backstage Pass club member, we sent out an email with the link already. If not, you just go to YouTube, our channel, and you will see that you'll have access to it. If you're not yet a club member and you'd like to become one, well, for under $10 per month, you can join us. And you can sit in on these private batch recording sessions of these Etsy shop audits. You can go to brandcreators.com/club. And you can just type that in. Or if you're lazy like me, you can just go in the description and we'll have a link there for you. You can just click on it. Or if you're on YouTube, even better yet, there's a little join button next to the subscribe button, and you can click that. A lot of different ways. All right. So with that all being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. Let us know also in the comments, is this a good format for you? Do you like these lives that we're doing every single week? Do you like that we're adding in a little bit of news stuff that we're trying to stay up to date on? Let us know in the comments. We're experimenting. We're playing around with some different formats and how we can better serve you and even a broader audience. We did have some people in the comments say, hey, could you talk more about other selling platforms like Amazon or like TikTok shops? How many of you are doing TikTok shops? Anybody? Leave that in the comment. We'd like to see that too. Anything that we can do to help you. We've been down this road a bunch of different times. We're still traveling down the road, but we've We've sold on Amazon. We've sold on eBay. We're selling on Etsy. Okay. And we are Shopify, another one, right? So we are familiar with all of these, and we are staying up to date with all of the news and everything. So if you are interested in any of those other topics, let us know in the comments. We'd like to know. All right. So that's it, guys. That's going to wrap it up. Once again, as always, take care, take action, have an awesome, amazing day, and we'll see you right back here on the next episode. Take care, guys.